Hello and welcome to my stream. This is Will, the nerdy nerf herder. Today we're going to be building in Pokopia. Um, One of the things that I wanted to tackle last time I did a tour of my pallet town, and I showed you all my museum, and I felt that it wasn't grand enough when I was building it. But in order to get the fossil habitats in place, I went ahead and kept building anyway and made a preliminary museum. Today, I'd like you all to join me as I make the next museum. So let's get to it. And voila! So, right off the gate, this long stretch here you see from end to end is going to be the museum measure stick, basically. So, in order for this project to be wide enough, I am going to have to level some stuff and possibly build up some earth here and there. Um, Talked to a friend of mine, and he said part of the satisfying things is watching you destroy stuff, so we'll jump right in and start destroying this mountain. I'm not going to destroy the whole mountain, just enough to get the first phase of the build done. The more I thought on it, and the more I realized I probably won't be able to finish the whole museum in one string with the size of a build that I'm wanting to do. But I can at least get the walls and the floor plan set up. I already know what I'm wanting to do for that, so... Oh no, food. So I thought about some of the things that kind of brought me to this point. And one of them was becoming a gamer at a young age. I was 5 the first time I played on a Nintendo. My first console that I ever had was a Super Nintendo that I got when I was 7 for Christmas. It was bundled with the Super Mario World bundle. And at the time, my dad got me the console. He had this fascination with technology, and he thought that it was going to be not just something for me, but something for him as well. So he ended up getting the Hunt for Red October for the Super NES, as well as one other sub game, I think. But if you know Super Nintendo games and you know Nintendo games, they are notoriously difficult for no reason, especially for the movie games. They're like, nobody cares about this. We need to have games that take a certain amount of time to beat. You can't beat them in one weekend. We need conditions that causes somebody to go back to a Blockbuster and rent the game again and see more of the game because they weren't able to unlock everything in that very first weekend. And that has affected gameplay. Like, we don't have that anymore. Yeah, you can argue that games have become short. I mean, you look at the runtime for Final Fantasy VII or any of the Final Fantasy games in the 90s. And then you start comparing them to some of the AAA titles you see today, like a 20-hour game is considered a decent game to some people. If you've got 20 hours and you can complete the game, then that's great. Me, I'm much more of a long game person. I tend to like to get a lot of replay value or something like this where I can always build something new. Or I can start a new area from fresh again and create a whole new playthrough. So that's kind of what ended up creating my love of cozy games once I finally graduated from a Super Nintendo to the N64 with Harvest Moon 64. I couldn't tell you how many times I started the game over trying to figure out how to get each person befriended and why did that girl leave so early in the game. And she was one of the romancing characters. I'd barely gotten to know her, and she was leaving. And it was just such a radical concept at the time. The fact that a character would disappear mid-game like it did. Alrighty, let's see here. Where's that line? Okay. We need the line to be about here. Yeah, we'll go here. So I started at a time when we didn't have the internet to be able to tell us, hey, this is where you were messing up. We had this little booklet that came with the game, and it gave me the schedule of the festivals, and it told me the controls. It told me about how to take care of animals. And that was about it. You didn't have any information about what the villagers liked or any real easy way to get that either. I know it may frustrate some of you that I'm not picking up all these blocks, but we'll pick up some of them. They're not a big concern. I have plenty of blocks in my actual storage, so we don't need to worry too much about it. And as I smash them, the game does kind of despawn some of them, so you can kind of see it going right there as it despawns those blocks there. And as I said, we're not needing those. But yeah, so in order to discover everything that Harvest Moon 64 had to offer, I had to basically figure it out on my own as a middle schooler. And internet was there, but the resources, people weren't posting online so much about video games then. You were lucky to get a Flash arcade game or something on the internet. Things like Hamster Dance, where it was just a meme of a continuously animated dancing hamster, is what you would find on the internet. And you'd find some information here and there if you knew where to look. But a lot of it was just find it out on your own. Buy a video game magazine if they happen to create a game guide for the game you were playing. And that wasn't every game. If you wanted a game like Harvest Moon, they didn't really put out game guides for that. Now, like, they put out game guides for like Zelda Ocarina of Time, which was another game I was playing at the time when I discovered my love of cozy games. I couldn't tell you how many times I've played that game over and over again. Which, I mean, that game in itself is a prime example of the golden years of the N64. You had Ocarina of Time, you had GoldenEye, you had Smash Brothers had just come out, and that was a big deal for a lot of people. I ended up catching the Smash Brothers craze, and you kind of look where it's at now. It's gone far beyond anything that I ever expected for the game. But that was the days before the internet really made gaming super accessible. And then I started playing Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask was another great 64 game, and I honestly enjoyed it better than Ocarina of Time. The time travel mechanic made it just such a fun playthrough. You always had to be thinking about what you're doing, how much time you had to do what you were doing, because if you ran out before of time, before you finished your quest, and let's say you still haven't finished that dungeon and that 3-day timer was up. Sorry, buddy, but you got to start that one over again and start right from the beginning on that dungeon. You had to be conscious. You had to be able to manage your time wisely. And then some of the storyline quests where you had to basically just go through the cycle multiple times each time you played through the game to get something more akin to what you actually wanted. So, like, you wanted to get the wedding mask. You had to do so many side quests to get that wedding mask. But if you didn't get the wedding mask, you wouldn't get the final mask. And it was stuff like that. Like, you either had to buy a game guide or figure it out. And that is something that I think the internet has definitely helped. I know for me, I was able to use a game guide to help out if I got stuck someplace in a Zelda game when I was a kid. But, like, for the most part, if I wanted to do it, I just had to do it. And nowadays, if I had had access to a YouTuber doing a walkthrough of it, it would have been a game changer. Some of the maps and the guides weren't always that easy to read or know exactly what, based off the description of the room, exactly what was going on to know what you needed to do to make it work. Nowadays, pop on YouTube, okay, watch a section of a game, alright, load up the game, go to it, knock it out, load up the next section, keep going. And I think that's wonderful. I think games are meant to be fun. I don't judge anybody for using guides. Even on something like this, like, I know there are people out there who will date skip in order to get certain builds done and get resources gathered for stuff, and that's just not my deal. Resources gathering is fun to me, but I like being able to play the game at a semi-leisurely pace, not always be so all the time grind. Sometimes it's nice to just kind of chill and enjoy the music. There have been many times where I've paused and had a conversation with my wife or kids while playing a game, and the music has just been lame, but this one's not too bad. You find a place in the game that I've built up and park the character right there. The weather effects will change as you're sitting there, and you can enjoy a kind of like a leisurely conversation with like chill background music and a pleasant kind of animated scene in the background, just like you would if you were listening to lo-fi. And again, I'm sorry if anybody is bothered by me not picking up blocks. Later on, you'll see, once we get to my storage unit, I've got plenty of them. I'm sure at some point during this building process, I will need to go to my actual storage unit, where I keep all of my in-game materials and my main crafting bench. Right now I've got it set up as my home for Pallet Town for the simplicity factor of warping back to it during this build. Normally I would put myself up on the volcano way up there. Oh. For those of you who don't play a whole lot of Pokopia that might tune in, the reason I keep having to eat this one particular food is rocks can't easily be destroyed unless you eat a certain food. Alright, so we're going to that level now. Like I said, I will level this whole mountain eventually. I'm only going to try to level this front part here, so that way we can get the build nice and relaxed. I apologize, it's taking a little longer than I thought it would. But there is something satisfying just watching everything get destroyed. And I know the end result will be worth it. Either way, Grog Smash, I appreciate you tuning in and listening. Right now, the main sound, of course, is that boulders being smashed, or rock, cave rock, and cliff rock being smashed. And again, I know some of the people are like, oh, all those resources. We got plenty, don't worry. Here, there, I'll suck up some resources there. You know what? That's a good point. We could possibly... I always forget there is a function. Here. This will show you my storage area and my little Fortress of Solitude for Ditto for these moments. So this is my storage area. I do have a cannon, and I think they can be shot from it. Let's see. Do I have another cannon? I think it would be in toys. No. So yeah, I've got all kinds of storage, and this is meant to be expanded upon. I looted a lot of materials from here, put near the build. Let's see. Cannons are utility. Miscellaneous. One more cannon. Alrighty. So my other areas here are not as well developed as my pallet town. Withered Wasteland was my start of the game. I was pushing through to get everything just enough passable to advance the storyline, so... We're gonna load that up. And I'm gonna get Electrode and Voltorb, and I think I can launch them at the camera. Or the mountain. Sorry. I do need to set up a camera so I can get a good view, though. Alright, so that's not where Voltorb's at. I think Electrode is here. Yep. Alright. Follow me, buddy. So yeah, this was early stages. It was cram Pokemon. This is technically a house. It technically has 5 habitats in a house, and a decoration and bed, and it was just enough to make people happy, and that was it. The bare minimum being done there to see results. Where? I had Voltorb here. Maybe I don't. Oh, there's Voltorb's home. Wait. Habitats inside homes. He would make the slum lords happy. Alright, follow me. But yeah, you can see 20 awesome. Everybody's kind of somewhere. It got enough for environment level 10. Alrighty. Back to where I've done the majority of my building. Which the thought occurred to me I may need to move my home. Because these Pokemon are not going to like being trapped underneath. That is one of the sad things about how when you're building in this game, you can make areas that are accessible by ladder. And when you do that, you can access them. But these round boys, they cannot come up here. Alright. But open this. Have an idea. We do that. Then come back. Make sure they're still listed as following. Still listed as following. Okay, let's warp back. And I can take them to the build site and we can blow things up that way. I hope. We got cannons. But yeah, I decided to put my storage underground. And of course, this is the original library. Which we will be looting that library for supplies. Alrighty, I don't know how well these are going to work, but we'll give them a shot. Props for reminding me on that, Grog. I apologize for forgetting about that one tiny little mechanic. I think my friend also underestimated when I showed him a picture of the mountain just how big it was as well. But that's okay. We're going to set up some cannons here. And then I mean, it is doing something. I don't know if it's necessarily as fast or as efficient. I don't know. They exploded, that's for sure. I'm gonna clean up this edge. I don't know, I kind of feel like it's faster still doing the other. But that is a mechanic in the game, so we'll move you two over here. So this is the area I set up earlier today to give us some resources, a quick crafting bench, and this house. And I put Smearguru in here. That way he was available. And we'll move these two in here. I have an idea where I want to put them eventually anyway. Alright. Yeah, happy to show it off. Like I said, I don't know that it's going to be faster for what we're doing, with the time it takes for them to get back in the cannons, but like if you've got a small little build that you want to destroy in a hurry, I think it would be more effective. With this, just the ability for me to keep in motion, almost like a 3D printer, just kind of deleting blocks from the cliff, I think is the way to go for this scale. Though I think next time I attempt to tackle the rest of the cliff, when I do the back end of the build, because the front end of the build is going to be nice. I'm looking forward to getting that done. But the back end of the build, let's just say I'm taking some inspiration from a place near and dear to my heart when I was growing up. I have never actually been to the restaurant that I'm going to be referencing for that build, which is the Garden Grill at Epcot. But my idea was kind of like how Epcot's Living with the Land is a ride that kind of goes through a greenhouse and shows you the different things that they're growing and whatnot, and then you can go into the Garden Grill and eat at the restaurant and eat the food that was grown on the property in the greenhouse. I thought that was a cool, like, farm-to-table concept. And so I was thinking, you know, natural history museum elements to this museum. We're wanting to put some space elements to this, since there's so many wonderful, like, little space builds as part of this game, given the storyline. Yeah, it is a little faster, or at least more consistent. Because I just basically drop a level and I can get the next. But yeah, I thought I would do the museum and do kind of like the exhibit lobby and the exhibit space and whatnot. Get that going. And then the idea would be to have a greenhouse cafe combination coming off the back end for people to go and eat at. So please don't come after me, Disney, for borrowing a concept for a build, but not going to be a ride, I promise. I already made a volcano roller coaster. I don't need to make another roller coaster at this time. If I were to do another roller coaster, though, it would be something that wouldn't have stops in it like I did that one. But that one was also because I wanted to have different environment. But yeah, my love of cozy gaming is what brought me here to this point in my gaming career. Having played Harvest Moon 64 got me started on learning what real cozy games are. And then I would end up playing, I want to say, a Game Boy Advance version of Harvest Moon. I know I also played a DS version and A Wonderful Life. Getting that farming kind of cozy feeling. I also got into Kirby when I was really young. I would play the Kirby Super All-Stars every time I would go over to my friend's house, because that's one of the games that they had on Super Nintendo. And I have to admit, Kirby was a lot easier than Mario, but for some reason, I did play more Mario than Kirby. Maybe it was because part of me craved the challenge, which is surprising because I spent a lot of my life kind of dodging challenges. Anxiety would stop me from taking on big projects and stand in the way of me being able to function sometimes. But whenever I would load in and see that destroyed, run-down farm, all of a sudden that challenge didn't seem so bad. The Elite Four in Pokemon, which Game Boy was my second console. I know I said I'm not going to mainly be collecting blocks, but if I get ore, I'm going to collect ore. We'll get that. Ore is useful. Blocks I can get just about anywhere for this. The ore takes a little longer. Not a whole lot, though. Next time, I will definitely grind this out more. I apologize. I'm still kind of new to this. And it kind of goes back to some of what I mentioned before with anxiety. Like, I'm putting myself out here a little bit, so this is something new to me. Anxiety is something that I've kind of grown with. It's molded me, it's shaped me, it's messed me up in the head to where things don't always seem like they should be. And I know in this time, in this world, it's really easy to become overwhelmed. And sometimes you just need to kind of kick back and relax. Remember, you are not alone. And somewhere, there may be a video game that you can play that can help you with your anxiety. Pokopia's kind of helped me with mine. Having played similar games like Dragon Quest Builders, I did some design work in there where I built myself a town for my Dungeons and Dragons games. And I was working through that, and I admit by now that if I were to go back to that, that build would seem tiny and insignificant compared to what's possible. Oh, let's see here. We're 3 rows down from ground zero. So, yeah. Let's get some space here. Give us a little room on a border. And those floating blocks I can easily take care of with Magnemite. Again, I love these moss blocks. I'm going to collect them. Moss is one of my favorite blocks in the game for a natural habitat. Like, it's, I don't know why. It makes me so happy. Alright. Effects of food have worn off. Good thing I have plenty of food. But growing up, I was an only child, so the games like Smash Brothers didn't quite hit with me as nicely as, say, Legend of Zelda, or Pokemon, or Harvest Moon. When you don't have anybody to play with you, it's a lot harder to play multiplayer games. And while, yeah, my dad would play with me on occasion on something like that, he wasn't the greatest. I got to give him an A for effort. He played with me. But it was quick for me to realize I could easily beat him at Mario Kart. And I am decent enough at Mario Kart that I can have fun, and I will usually be within the top of the pack. In most CPU situations until the end of the race where I move forward. Playing with the kids, I was easily defeating them when they were first learning. My son has gone hardcore into Mario Kart World, while I have not played it as much, so he knows the courses a little better now, and he's able to take advantage of some of those shortcuts that I haven't learned yet in that game, where I don't play it as often. But I'm pretty sure if you were to load up Mario Kart 64 or Mario Kart Wii, I could definitely make some ground. Or even the original Switch Mario Kart, I could definitely make some ground on the kids still. But I don't know that I could necessarily beat him at Mario Kart World now. And as a dad and a gamer, I can't be more proud. Like, I always told my son, I'm not taking it easy on you. And when it comes to this game, when you win, know that you won because you earned it. Like, I didn't hold back. I gave him the best Mario Kart 8 Deluxe races I could, and would come out on top on pretty much all but the occasional race where the whole family would team up on me and get me trapped in the middle of the pack. And he'd be able to sneak in first place to my second. But definitely I am not a Mario Kart pro. But playing Mario Kart solo was just not that much fun as a kid. So I got into Zelda, I got into Pokemon when the Game Boy Advance came out. I got into Golden Sun. And I got into, finally, I was not a PlayStation person. Growing up, I did not have a PlayStation 1. I did get a PS2, and my first game for the PS2 was Gundam Wing Battle Assault, which was a Gundam fighter, and I think that was one of the dumbest moves on my part. Even though I was huge into Gundam, nobody really played it with me. I didn't have people to fight, and online content was still very weak on the PlayStation 2. Yeah, in theory it had that dock that you could plug in a modem into, but good luck finding the attachment and getting it working. Alrighty. These trees are going to be a problem, but we can take care of that. Like I said, I'm trying to get us to ground zero. We're almost there. And we got to make sure it's wide enough. So one of the mechanics in this game, using berries to be crushed for ink, has become a thing that's almost like a pain in my butt. Trying to get all the white paint and the black paint needed for some of these builds, where you'll notice I can get red paint from this, I can get blue paint from that, I can get cyan paint from this, yellow from here, pink, and green. But if I want white and black, it's random luck of the draw. The Pokemon crushing up my berries has to decide, hey, I want to produce a little extra, because I went overboard. Alrighty. Ground zero. Next time I will have more. But once we get through this, it should build pretty quick. And one of the things I will do is, well, yes, I will off-stream work on smashing out the rest of that mountain for the back part of the build. I will not actively work on the build itself between now and the next stream. So come Thursday night, when I load in here for that stream, which Thursday night stream is definitely only going to be an hour. That'll be 11 p.m. until midnight, because shortly after midnight, it becomes May 1st. And that is a very important time on my calendar. As we move into the month of May, we get ready to celebrate one of my absolute most favorite holidays. And that is May the 4th. Which, I mean, you know, May the 4th be with you. Followed by Revenge of the 5th and Revenge of the 6th. Because there must always be 2. 5th. No more, no less. At least if you're going by a Rule of Bane era Star Wars lore. Which is another big fandom. One of the things growing up was movies. We were constantly consuming movies. You'd go to Blockbuster, and if you were lucky, and it was going to be a movie weekend because of the rain or something, you'd pick up a couple of movies and you'd watch movies over the weekend. And Star Wars was a big one for me. I remember I was thoroughly impressed when I first watched Episode 4, and I could not wait to watch Episode 6, but my dad said that it was already way too late, and we'd have to wait until the next day to watch it, which he ended up buying the VHS box set just so that way I could watch it when I was about 7 or 8. And I remember watching that scene in Empire Strikes Back when Luke was in the Wampa cave and being so terrified of the Wampa and like so afraid that Luke was going to die, and we were going to have to get a new hero, and Han Solo was going to be the main character and in love with Leia, even though it should have been Luke. And wait, what? It's his sister? What? Of course, nowadays, it's like, okay, where do you start your children off on Star Wars content? Do you start them off with Episode 1? Let them see Anakin's story from the beginning? Do you start them off on Episode 4? Do you start them off on something like The Clone Wars or Rebels? Something a little more relatable to them, where you've got the characters that are closer to their age, like Ahsoka Tano in Clone Wars or Ezra Bridger in Rebels. And I ended up doing Episode 1 with the kids, which was enough to get them, my daughter, interested. My son wanted nothing to do with it, though. Eventually, he'd come and ask to be like, hey, can we watch Star Wars? But that's only been within the last year that he's really wanted it, and he's middle school age, roughly. Um, and my daughter, she took to it. And they both wanted to see it episode 1 straight through in order because they wanted to see everything in the timeline of how it should happen. But I recently saw a suggestion from Sam Witwer, who does the voice acting for Starkiller in the Force Unleashed games, is the voice actor for Darth Maul. He's done the Emperor in the Clone Wars. He had a really good point, and that was introduce kids to episode 4. Let them watch episode 4. They'll see it, they'll see Luke, they get to see Darth Vader. Darth Vader's cool. But not only that, but the whole setup for episode 4. You're getting so much world information, but it kind of feeds it to you in a natural way that makes it really easy to absorb. So, watching episode 4, you kind of teach them the basics. They start to learn a little bit about this thing called the Force. They see what laser swords and lightsabers are. And they understand that there's blasters and aliens and spaceships and the Empire. But then you show them the Clone Wars. Let them see Anakin in his glory. Let them watch episodes 1 and 2 and some of the Clone Wars content. And let them get attached to Anakin Skywalker. So that way, when the time comes and you're dealing with, let's see here, I gotta get my measurements here. Once they've got that emotional attachment to Anakin, this idea that he's the hero, that they're invested in it, we take it and we go, okay, let's give them episode 4, 5, and 6. Then bring on episode 3. Let's see, I want to take it back about 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. I was so close with where to cut it. So close. Alright. We can... I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we can do this. So that right here is 26 blocks wide, or long, or deep, or however. And that should be the main structure. We wanted to start off about like here, so we're going to go step back. And that will put us right along this path, right here for my start. Alright. Now that we've got an area to work with, let's start putting in some blocks. these out of our way. You can see where there's that barren soil kind of mixed into that cut of the mountain that I filled in a cave to get it level. So that way I could easily steamroll through it. So, for our floor, well, here, let's get rid of some natural blocks. We're going to be doing a central area, and then we're going to be doing 2 wings. And we're going to be using this dark marble flooring painted white. And we're going to get that. Oh, I made it. Okay. So for this first part of the build, we're going to make the floor ground level. We're going to start it off here, and I'm going to eventually end up probably filling in part of this beach area right here as the part of the front area. And then just kind of square off this corner a little bit better, and our central area will become the main part of the museum. So this is, again, let's go up so people can kind of see. So that's 26 blocks. We want to go here. We're going to go 3. And then 1, 2, 3. Here, here, and that's our spot. So 3, 6, 9. Here. Okay. There's 27, 28, 29. And then... So that's 18. You know what? Yeah, we'll be fine. 19, 20. So this will be our floor for the first wing. Yeah, I'm definitely going to need to take out some more of this cliff side. But the back of the structure is not necessarily urgent. Like I said, there's still plenty of infrastructure to get going with. But I promise I will not work on this project, specifically the building part, off screen. So while I am getting everything started, and we're going to get hopefully the front of the building done here, and get the initial floor plan taken care of. Alright. So what I'm going to do here, so that way we keep easy access to where I want something. Let's go ahead and work on to pull out some marble. And I'm going to use that to mark where our entryway is. So I've thought about the dimensions on how tall I want this building to be. There are some Pokemon where 2 high is plenty, and there's some that like 3. And if there's not at least 3 high space for them to maneuver, they struggle. So I'm thinking one of the things that I did on the mansion was keep it 4 high for the wall. And I think 5 high would work well for the museum build here. Oh, so now that I've got that slotted in, we need to use the right block. There we go. So from 21 to all right. Are we lined up? 3. One more. We need the marble again. And we did... We did the gap on the other side of the 21. So we need one more outward. There's our 6. And then we just line this up. Alrighty. And now we can get the rest of this build front. That's fine. With that, that's 21. Means we need to get rid of this. So 2 more. Bam. That is our initial area. Get this stuff out of the way real quick. Since we know we can't place blocks. Alrighty. Thankfully, Magnemite makes the build process a little easier. But we will not. Except when it comes to picking up items off the ground. Magnemite is not good at picking up what is considered dropped item from the ground. Alright. Oh, come on. There we go. So like I said, one of the things I wanted for this build was scale. When making my initial fossil exhibits, I didn't feel like I really had enough space. I kind of guessed how much space I might need, built the building, and then started adding them in, not realizing how big all of them were, having not collected them all yet. But now I have a much better idea of how I want that to look. And in order for me to accomplish that, I, well, we got what we have here. A lot bigger floor plan. And like I said, this is all dark marble, painted white for the flooring. And we are almost done with this second wings flooring. Alrighty. So I know I said that I wanted to do it 5 high for this, and then I made those other columns for the door frame 4 high over there. And I will show you why in here in just a moment. Alrighty. Now to start building the other part of the building. So from marker there, nope. So 1, 2. And this entire area here can now get filled in. And once this is filled in, we'll start on the wall. And you know what? No, I'm gonna finish the task at hand. We're gonna finish setting up some of the floors. So for the fossil exhibits, I was thinking about how I wanted to do those in this build. Prior, I had put them on pedestals, and that works. Pedestals definitely work. But I think we can do better. I think we can do something a little nicer, a little cleaner than... Oh. We'll go ahead and toss this up. That way my barrier is a little nicer and clearer. Oop, not enough blocks of marble. And this is exactly why I put my crafting bench over here. We can make plenty of marble. Let's see. Let's go for it. I feel like a museum needs to be marble. Lots of marble. Now we are going to be using other elements for the exterior walls, which I will get to. And the other thing that's going to be factored in is I may even take this entire section here and bring it down to level with this beach area. So that way we get a nice approach into the museum and go up some ladder or stairs here. Because again, can't work with ladders. Alright, we got my walls for that defined. Alrighty. But bear with me here. Looks like I gave myself alright. I know what I'm doing here. So we've got that 4 wide. We're going to take this. 1, 2, 3. Or 1, 2 here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2. I promise this will make sense here in a moment. But what we're going to do is I was thinking about what would be a unique way to display the fossils that I haven't quite seen that we're not using in the base museum already. And my solution to that was, what if instead of putting them up on pedestals, we sink them into the ground. And that is how I ended up where I'm at now. Then This is gonna be another little fun little tack-on area I'm wanting to do. I'm not going to delete all of it yet. We're just going to get that initial line here. So that way, I can easily get my spacing right. That's wonderful. So we'll sink the fossil exhibits here. And I'm going to do 6x6 squares for 4 of the fossils. And we want some space in between them, so that way, in theory, people could walk around and see them. And we don't want it right up against the wall. And you'll see why later. Alright. Do that. And we're going to switch to this. Because we will still need this flooring. I think what we're going to do today is I'm going to finish off these floors in this section here and getting that sunk where how I want it, so you can kind of see what I'm going to be working with here. So we want that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sink this another level. So now we're 3 blocks deep from the floor. Or 2 blocks, I guess, from the floor. So that. And then we're going to delete this. Everything will make sense. So when I was thinking about how I wanted to set this build up, one of the things that I latched on to was the idea that we need light surrounding the entire exhibit. So what's the best way for me to demonstrate the light? Well, I could put light blocks, I could do all kinds of effects. But why not do something a little more interesting? It'll give it, I think, an electric-free option. And that is how we came up with this idea. We're gonna stick mushroom lights in here. And then we're gonna do some creative swapping. Using Magnemite. Get things set up. That's driving me nuts. Let's put that back on. There we go. We've got some mushrooms there. So we're going to use the mushroom lamps. You know what? We're making 95. I have a feeling we'll need plenty. So what we'll do is come back in here. And now we shall take these. I'm going to place them just so. And this is how I made the shelving lighting in the beach condo. And I thought, maybe that will work nicely. Create kind of a glow effect around the fossil exhibit. We just need to do a little bit of creative placement. These blocks out of here. And then we place the floor. Alrighty. Then we want to come here. And swap this out. That way it looks nice all the way around. And that'll give us a little bit of a glow around the fossils. But we can probably take it up. Yeah, we'll be alright. That being said, we are starting to run low. On some of our supplies here. So yeah. That'll create some ambient light, and then once I get this built up, I'm going to have other light sources up above, kind of coming down. But I thought that would give a nice little effect. Though I may bring it in one more level. Bring that row in closer, just a hair. We'll see. I'll play with it somewhere else, and we'll see how it goes. So with that, I'm going to take this moment and say thank you for joining me. I know it's been a little bit longer than an hour. We've gone almost an hour and a half tonight. Hope you enjoyed watching as I started this museum build. Like I said, we'll continue on with it. I won't work on it. If for some reason I do not like how that my testing works out for this part of the build, we may swap it in for a different light source to help give it that glow effect. But I definitely want to do a lowered floor with a glow effect around it. So we're going to set that up, and I hope you like it. Thank you for joining me here, as always. Follow me and stay tuned. Our next broadcast will be on Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.